Hey guys, what's up? This is Armin van Buuren, and these are my 5 essential tracks.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Solitary brother.
The 5 tracks that I picked, the idea behind it was it have to be 5 tracks that cross over boundaries.
Game changers.
Game changers, artists that had the guts to step out of their comfort zone. And so all these 5 tracks are not comfort zone tracks. They're, in my opinion, they're tracks that revolutionized that sound at that specific time. We're talking about Phil Collins.
Definitely. Track number 1.
Well, I think Phil Collins is a very interesting person. I think, first of all, he wrote some excellent songs. And in particular, the track I selected, In the Air Tonight. It's a very depressive song. It's actually about somebody killing himself, I think, or a friend killing himself. And I think it was also part of Phil's dark period where he just left Genesis. It was one of his first solo things. And I got in touch with this song through a mini mix by Ben Liebrand, the Dutch master mixer. He was one of the very first guys to actually mix 2 records together. He was not the first, but he was one of the first to take it to a next level. And one of the most memorable mixes was that he just took the original In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins and he programmed a drum track underneath it, which again catapulted In the Air Tonight into the UK charts again. I think his remix became number 3 or number 2 again in the British Top 40. So Ben, by adding a drum track and those very dark sounds that came from the Roland synthesizer, he finished In the Air Tonight, in my opinion, because it was already a brilliant song, but his version added something of value. I still love the original. I love both versions, but for me, what Ben did with the version, it just added the emotion. The drums added the drama, because the drums are like more dark. And so for me, this was a very influential track because this was something I really wanted to know how he did that track. So that's also, for me personally, that's why it's one of my 5 essential tracks.
Are you a dashboard drummer when the drums kick in?
I am, absolutely.
Show me your moves.
Right? That's standard issue.
Yeah.
You want those drums. Every track that I do, I wish my drums would sound like that. And that's also a thing about Phil Collins. He was not only a great songwriter, a great drummer, and a great singer, but he was also sort of a sound engineer, you could say. He was very particular about how he wanted his tracks to sound. So he was a genius, in my opinion. And In the Air Tonight, still to this day, when I hear the song, and I've known it for 25 years, the song really touches me. And there's a lot of music that I'm less interested in, but you can still wake me up in the middle of the night and play In the Air Tonight for me, and I will still be happy. Well, track number 2 is a track that I think I was 10 years old, 12 years old when I heard it. It was Adamski, the DJ from the UK, combined with a totally new voice, which happened to be the voice of Seal. And now we know Seal as, Kiss from a Rose.
Solitary brother. Is there still a part of you that wants to live? Solitary sister. Is there still a part of you that wants to give?
And it was such a unique bass line. It was such an empty track, and it sounded, I still remember to this day, it sounded so fresh, and it came from the rave culture which was happening then in the UK. And this track skyrocketed, and it opened the world, I think, to dance music in general. It became number 1, I think, also in Holland. And it's still a track that has such a unique vibe, and absolutely one of the tracks that inspired me to become a DJ. I remember buying the CD single at one of the big stores here that's no longer there now. And I still have it. I still have the CD single. It's still, one of the most iconic tracks, and everybody, as soon as that track starts playing, when the bass line kicks in, it's like the bass line is genius, and then on top of that, the song comes.
Yeah.
And it's just like the way that Seal sings the song, the emotion of the song, the meaning of the song, especially in that era, because I think, you know, the rave scene in the UK has meant a lot for what happened with dance music worldwide. The UK didn't invent dance music, but they matured it.
Yeah.
Without the UK, I wouldn't be standing where I am now, because funnily enough, my DJ career took off in the UK before it did in Holland. Now everybody knows me here in Holland with the shows I did, but before anyone wanted to book me in Holland, I was DJing in the UK because my track got popular in the UK. But I dreamed of that because there was nothing bigger to dream. And I remember the first Dutch DJs playing occasionally in the UK, and it got in the news. It was in the news. When the first Dutch DJs actually were playing in England, that was a thing. Track number 3, My Name is Barbarella. I grew up listening to dance music on the radio. So I had to get my dance music experience, if you will, driving my bicycle to school. So I taped a couple of radio shows in Holland. And one of the best things about living in Holland was that we had pretty good radio. Probably my favorite radio show, not a lot of people know this. Actually, I never told this, but it was a show on Hilversum 3, now 3FM. Which was a show called Capule de Luxe by Luc Jansen from the VPRO. Obscure. It was a very, very strange radio show. And then there was a Genius episode with all the rave tracks from the UK. And there was one episode where they played this track, My Name is Barbarella. It has that monotone arp, and then the strings coming over that, which makes it completely, and then he reverses the arp, and it's such a experimental, weird track, but you can just see, I still get goosebumps listening to that track. It's like, it's very experimental, but it was a sign of what was about to come. Because that track, actually, if you analyze it now, and you would label it now, would probably be labeled as techno. It would not be labeled as trance. I never actually told this to anybody, but the inspiration for Blue Fear came from My Name is Barbarella.
Which you first heard on your bike.
On my bike, driving to school, thanks to the Dutch radio. A lot of people associate me with Jean-Michel Jarre, and he's great, he's a genius. I still consider him the Mozart of electronic music, because he is. He got the synthesizer popular. He's probably the biggest selling electronic musician ever. In the beginning, he was really experimenting with new techniques. And one of the new techniques in the early 90s was sampling. So he went around the world, he toured around the world to record voices from several tribes and human beings and different languages. So he used the sampler as a creative instrument because it was so revolutionary at the time. Well, he created an album called Zuluk, and the artwork of the album looked completely weird as well, in which he added the sample sounds, the sampled noises from those voices as musical parts. So he used the sampler as a musical instrument rather than just as a sampler. This is where I found my father again. I remember going to Leiden to the record store, and my dad would go once a week, and I would always go with him. And I was like, what, 8, 9 years old? I don't know. And I remember he always went to this woman who worked at the classical department, and she always had his recommendation. She really had the taste of my father. So she came up with this electronic album, and she said, you have to listen to this. And my father was like, Jean-Michel Jarre? You're giving me in a classical department, you're giving me an album by Jean-Michel. And he listened to it. And he was blown away. So my father bought the CD, and I remember he played it really loud at home. And my bedroom used to be above his living room, our living room, where the speakers would be really loud. And I remember sleeping at night and my father playing Ethnicolor so loud. And my mother was scared. She was actually yelling, my dad, turn it softer, softer. You're waking up the kid. But I was happy. I was happy listening to this completely weird track. And I still think if I really have to pick my favorite track ever, it will probably be Ethnicolor one, because it was the big inspiration for my big intros. Yeah. So the reason why I'm doing those intros is because of Zuluk. The fifth track is from an album that changed my life. It's called The Orb's Adventures Beyond the Ultra World. And again, it was from the Dutch radio show Capule Deluxe, where I heard this track called Little Fluffy Clouds. And at that point, it was just, I thought it was an interesting track.
You might still see it below.
It was a dance track. It was very popular. It's a very weird album. The atmosphere, the mood of the album just completely got me. And I really felt at home. When I heard that album, I was like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. And what I really love about the Orb is that they're having their foundations in reggae, ska. So it comes from a completely different background, but it's still electronic. They're using synthesizers, they're using a lot of arpeggios. So as soon as you listen to an Orb album or an Orb track, it takes you to another dimension. It takes you to another world. It takes you to a different place. So whenever I'm tired or I feel sad or I'm lonely or whatever happens in my life, if I turn on the Orb, it's my safe zone. It's my if you really want to know what the inside of my head looks like, just listen to the entire The Orb's Adventures from the Ultra World or UF Orb. There's so much music out there, so much great. There's a lot of music I don't like, but I'm just focusing on all the great creative stuff that's on there, and it enriches your life. You know, you have music for every type of the day. You know, even some of the Dutch music I can appreciate. So, you know, I'm just a music fanatic. Let's put it that way.
Thank you so much for your enthusiasm and your 5 essential tracks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I hope you enjoyed that. Those are my 5 essential tracks. If you want to see more, head over to youtube.com/5essentialtracks, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.